my friend sent me an archive of every single Trump appearance on Stern.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, it's such a fucking like hackneyed observation at this point. But it is just so funny that guy's the president. Yeah. We did it twice. It's so funny. Like, he's like going on Stern to talk about like buying the Miss Universe pageant because he's like, I'm sick of the scholarships. We're not giving scholarships. We're bringing bikinis back. He's like calling Miss Venezuela like a living, breathing, eating machine. like he's just like, but he knew. I think they had a lot of people are like, what's happened to Stern? But like a lot of it is that those two people had a massive falling out.
I see.
And he, in 2016, wanted Howard because he knew the power of Howard's audience. I mean, like,
right.
Because he like understood the power of Howard's audience. The Apprentice was the second highest rated television program after the Super Bowl.
Right.
You know? And I guess when it comes to, you know, if you talk about like William F. Buckley Hitchens, like they wouldn't have explored, you know, accessing audiences in that way, right? There would be a snobbishness to it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But
for sure.
Trump like asked Howard to be the keynote in 2016, and Howard was like, "No, I think you're like fuck you." But I think a lot of it, this is me just being a fan and like and like trying to. Now I'm sounding like the people that are like, the podcast is late again this week. You know, like now I'm sounding like them.
Yeah.
But like I think maybe there was a little bit, maybe there was like a remorse attached to that.
Like he created a monster.
Like he'd created a monster. You know, a reformed sinner is always gonna seem like the biggest scold in the world. It's like all my friends who have a parent that converted to Judaism, they're always like way more pious than the Jewish parent.
Yeah.
And then like the one who was born Jewish is always like, shut up. Like
they take it for granted.
Yeah, like Howard's like transformation, I think recently has maybe morphed him into a bit of a scold. But as an exercise, listening to those interviews is like fascinating, just to see how Howard just ingratiates himself immediately.
Yeah.
And like Trump is probably, if you had to guess, maybe the most impossible interview subject.
Yeah.
Because he's
gonna do whatever he wants.
Do whatever he wants. Like he's gonna, like Roy Cohn will be his lawyer during his like trial for racism with the Department of Justice. And he'll be like, "Oh yeah, I've never met that guy." You know, like he's just when you are untethered to the truth, like you can do anything you fucking want to do.
Right.
And when your supporters know that you're lying, then it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
If you're lying, because they're like, he's lying for us.
Right.
So it doesn't. It's
well, they also don't trust that like the courts are fair or legitimate.
Right.
Like, they're all against this guy anyway.
Or there's this notion of like, if you're gonna be successful, you have to be a fucking cheater, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's like, that's why he's doing it, right?
Well, it means that the system is corrupt. It's the proof that the system is corrupt.
Sure.
If you have to cheat to get ahead.
Yeah. Trump was the only one who knew that Ali G was fake, if you remember, right?
I didn't remember that, but that's a good point.
Boutros Ghali. Like, he tricked everyone, and everyone like took the bait. Donald Trump was the only one that's like, I'm fucking out of here.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous.
There's
Clearly
something about this
doing...
moment about comedians and truth that is like really, really important for right now. You know, like this keeps coming up in all the episodes that we do, that like it is impossible to mistake that like the most influential, like quantitatively the most influential, the largest audiences are podcasts that sometimes talk about politics but are run by stand-up comedians. Right?
Yeah.
It's just like indisputably, these are the largest audiences.
And it's bad. That's bad.
I don't think it's a good thing, but it's
good.
unmistakable. And I don't think it's possible for the legacy media to like trust, or for people to trust the legacy media again. So we're kind of just in this position that we're in.
It's funny when my friends will go on Rogan, you know, and it's like a huge opportunity for a stand-up.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, and you know, of course, like the migrants are cutting the penises off the babies. And then my friend's like, you know, they'll be sitting there like, yeah, they're like, yeah, so Omaha, Funny Bone, the 25th, and they're like, you know, great to be here, Joe. Yeah. yeah, of course the migrants are
Right.
but yeah, Norm Macdonald, who's like the best, R.I.P. He had like a quote once that was like, people are considering comedians like modern day philosophers, and I find that really offensive to modern day philosophers. I don't understand what like trying to have sex with a waitress, like how that qualifies you to be like Cornell Western.
I mean,
like,
is it too much responsibility it probably is too much responsibility to put these things onto the shoulders of comedians. But I mean, I used to make, I was very active online. I would make viral posts that were comedic, but also had a critique inside of it. And there's something that's, the power of humor is that it cuts through everything else. And if it can make you laugh, then there's something about it that's true or insightful, or that power, especially in a media environment where you're just told a lot of lies or a lot of things that don't map to your life. Comedy is a really powerful tool. So I think that, Rogan, I've written and spoken about him in the past and been, very defensive, supportive of his project, because I think if the mainstream can't give you a more compelling narrative, then this guy deserves his audience. If you can't make more sense than him, then you don't deserve for people to listen to you.
Comedy and truth. I mean, I think if I'm talking to a firefighter that lives on Staten Island, he's going to be funnier than most stand-up comedians' acts, but I don't think there's going to be a lot of truth. Right? I think he's going to be like, the too many blacks on the Jets, I think he's going to be, why do they have so many blacks on the Jets this year? But that's going to be funny. Is that based on truth? I don't know. This guy's addicted to back pills. Right. I want to do something that's nice. Everything's so scary. I think especially in reference to this war in Gaza recently.
Yeah.
I think I did listen. It's well reported where I am, how I feel about this. But I do think that there are people that, let's say, were clinically depressed and then just being inundated by pictures of dead babies every day, and then projecting onto that human tragedy and saying, well, I have a right to be depressed. And it's not because I'm clinically depressed, it's because of these dead babies. And I think it really essentially is a narcissistic projection. It has nothing to do with Gaza, right? And I know people that had that experience, that people in my family that had that experience, where it's they were never engaged with the subject, and then they were inundated by all these traumatic images, and then they said, well, I have a right to feel terrible. And I should feel terrible, and it is just for me to feel terrible. But in essence, what does that really do for the kids in Gaza? You know what I mean?
Right.
And
they're not politicized. It's just that the news is the excuse to do what they wanted to do anyway.
Yeah, I think that it really stems from the fact that people just I'm not a very smart guy, but what do they call it on the internet? You have to touch the grass or something?
Touch grass.
Yeah. But I think that, people are watching a politics streamer.
Yeah.
Right? And they are
these are the worst.
This is making me, I am Che Guevara because I'm alone right now and I'm watching this,
Yeah.
I am doing communism.
Right.
And this is I'm a
keeping track of this streamer drama.
I'm a political activist because of this, but it has no impact on their communities. They're actually, in fact, more isolated in their lives than they ever were before. And that to me is scary.
Can I ask you a little bit about your background?
Sure.
Because I imagine you were raised in an environment that propagated Zionist narratives, gave you a certain way of understanding the world. Where did you first encounter information to the contrary?
I lived there, yeah. Well, at the very end, they took us to the settlements, and then I saw kind of the Arab village down the hill, and then I kind of saw, that they were being patrolled and they were fenced off, and I was Then I turned around and I saw this like house that looked like a track house in Tucson, Arizona, and it's, you know, and I was like, maybe this is kind of maybe not the right side.
Yeah.
But beyond that, propagated is like a strong word. I think like what it was that my parents knew Holocaust survivors, and they were told when they were kids that the Holocaust won't happen again if Israel exists.
Sure.
Right? And they knew these people that were skeletons and had been through hell, and it made, I think my generation was kind of maybe didn't know them. That argument didn't really work on us because we saw actually like how it was manifesting in, you know, oppression of other people. Like, you know, Jews fundamentally shouldn't make another person a refugee, like, especially in light of our history. The other side of it was that my parents came from South Africa, and my dad they had moved here in 1981. My dad was on like kind of a list, like an enemies list of the, we later found out of the secret police because in high school he thought he was like a hippie, and he did like a humanitarian relief project, I think in like Swaziland or like Lesotho.
Okay.
And I think they put him on a list. So when he turned 18, they were like, well, you're automatically enrolled in a reserves program. We can call you up to the South African military whenever we want.
Wow.
And then my parents had just gotten married, and then they got a letter that my dad was being sent to the civil war in Angola. So that's why we moved here. But then I learned about like South Africa when I was a kid, because that's where my parents came from. Mm-hmm. And you know, most every, like the vast majority of white people that stayed and joined the ANC and joined the struggle were Jewish people. And I think it was because we kind of could. There was at one point a sizable Jewish community in South Africa. I think literally my ancestors thought they were going to Ellis Island and got on the wrong boat. I think that's
really?
Well, it might be like apocryphal or whatever, but like that's the story I've been told. Can you imagine being from a shtetl and you get off a boat in Africa? It must have been like seeing Avatar or something. Like I imagine Lithuania, they didn't even have a color. It was like, it must have been black.
Just gray.
I imagine the shtetl is black and white. Yeah. It's like the Pleasantville. So yeah, I learned about that, and I used to like, so that like made a big impression on me because my parents used to tell me about that. But like, yeah, and then I lived in Israel for a year when I was after high school. And then I worked on an ambulance for 3 months. And then one thing that happens when you work like as a paramedic is like there's an intimacy aspect of it because you're entering people's homes, right?
Right.
So you see how people live, and you're seeing families, and you're seeing people in like moments of like crisis. Like,
Very
so if
vulnerable.
someone has like a heart attack, then you see like a son like becoming the man of the family. It's just it was actually too intense, but probably for an 18, 19-year-old kid. But then I kind of just saw the difference in how people lived there, even like Arab Israelis, because like, you know, in the medical community you treat anyone, so it wasn't like kind of subject to the politics. So even like going into like, you know, Arabs that live in Israel proper into their homes, you see this like, oh, there's like a difference here